Well, no. Can I just tell you that Australia has tackled illegal immigration very successly. And I think given the fact that Harry and Meghan are on their way, I think it's time to reactivate Operation Sovereign Borders, Paul. Just, airstrikes, get the boats out. Because no, the bottom line is, I mean, I can't speak for your viewers, but I will tell you that lots of Australian viewers of the Mark Dolan show don't want to see Harry and Meghan. The reason why it went down well in 2018, Paul, is because the Australian public didn't know Meghan Markle very well. Well, they know her now.
Australia just slammed the door on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and the reaction is loud, chaotic, and getting worse by the minute. A wild petition coming out of Australia is going viral fast and dragging their names straight into controversy for all the wrong reasons. People are talking, posting, and picking sides, and it's not looking good for the couple at all. This situation could turn into one of the most uncomfortable public snubs they've ever dealt with.
This was because Netflix was holding her back and she wants to push forward. Well, what better way to do that than to go to these countries and sort of test run how the business could go if they expand into Australia. I think nothing has been confirmed, but certainly it feels like that's the mood music.
And what do they know her to be? A gold-digging grifter.
So what actually changed? Why are Australians suddenly switching up on a duo that used to get star-level treatment everywhere they went? And here's the bigger question. Could this backlash spill over and cause tension inside the royal circle too? We're diving into the drama, the online chaos, and the kind of royal shakeup nobody saw coming this quickly. It all started when reports dropped that Harry and Meghan were planning a return trip to Australia in April 2026. Their team likely expected cheers, support, maybe even a big welcome moment, but that's not how it played out. The announcement mentioned private business plans and charity stops in Sydney and Melbourne. But here's the catch. There was zero mention of royal duties or any official role attached. That detail didn't sit right with a lot of people, and the reaction came in hot. Nothing about the announcement sounded extreme. But the reaction? Totally different story. The moment that news dropped, it exploded everywhere. Social feeds, headlines, royal watchers, all of it lighting up at once. Within hours, the mood flipped hard, and what should have been a simple update turned into a wave of criticism their team clearly didn't expect coming at them this fast. What makes it even more intense is how quickly everything switched compared to before. One minute it felt normal, the next it turned into full-blown backlash, with people questioning everything and not holding back at all.
At that time, because we didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. Enter 𝗍𝗵𝗵𝗆 book. I mean, these are the claims that he's talking about. It's the lead up to Megxit. But for us as journalists and members of the public seeing that tour, it looked like a huge success. There were thousands of people greeting them everywhere. They were so popular at that time. It felt like this really huge moment for them and a really exciting moment for the monarchy. Now, as we know, that wasn't how they felt about it behind the scenes. And, 18 months later, they had left the royal family.
Back in October 2018, when they toured Australia, as newlyweds and working royals, the vibe was completely different. The crowds were massive, the energy was electric, and places like Bondi Beach, Taronga Zoo, and the Sydney Opera House were packed out. People stood around for hours just to catch a glimpse that lasted seconds, and they were happy to do it. Now, the energy feels completely flipped, and people aren't holding back at all. Back then, Meghan was pregnant with Archie, and that made the whole visit feel even bigger, like it actually meant something beyond a routine royal appearance.
It's so interesting. I was actually on that royal tour back in 2018, and the optics for us...
There was this strong feeling across the country that Australia had been specially chosen, and people showed up for it in a big way. Flags waving, crowds cheering, real excitement in the air. You couldn't fake that kind of warmth. It was exactly the kind of global spotlight any working royal would want. But this upcoming trip? Totally different mood, and people are noticing every detail. This time, Harry was set to give a paid keynote at the InterEdge Psychosocial Safety Summit in Melbourne, a workplace mental health event where tickets were priced at over $1,500 each. Reports even suggest he could walk away with a serious five-figure paycheck, and that detail alone has people talking loudly. Meghan, on the other side, was lined up as the guest of honor at a 3-day luxury retreat in Sydney called Her Best Life, and the price tag had people raising their eyebrows instantly.
Well, no, what remains to be seen. I can't wait to see how they go here in Australia. The Duke and Duchess of Privacy on another privacy tour.
At $3,199, this wasn't exactly casual access. Attendees were promised a full experience too. A gala dinner, a stay at the Intercontinental in Sydney, time at Bondi Beach, professional styling sessions, and even a photo with the Duchess herself. Put both appearances side by side, and the picture started to look pretty clear. This didn't feel like a traditional visit at all. It came across more like a high-end private business setup. And for a lot of Australians already dealing with rising living costs, those prices didn't sit right. One bit, and people made sure their voices were heard loudly. It didn't take long for things to escalate fast. A Change.org petition suddenly popped up, and it started gaining serious traction almost instantly. The numbers climbed, the shares kept coming, and before anyone could slow it down, it was everywhere. The message behind it was blunt and straight to the point. Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties back in 2020, so according to the petition, they no longer represent the crown. Because of that, any visit to Australia should be treated as strictly private and fully paid for by them, no exceptions. That argument hit a nerve, and people jumped in quick. What started as a single petition turned into a full-blown national debate almost overnight. Federal politicians weighed in, royal commentators went back and forth, and even media outlets outside Australia grabbed the story and pushed it even further. Meanwhile, it looks like the Sussex team expected a wave of support centered around mental health and charity work. But instead, they walked straight into a storm that was already building, and it caught them completely off guard. Instead, they walked straight into a full-on PR battle, and it wasn't even close to slowing down yet. The backlash kept building, getting louder and more intense by the hour. What started as a simple complaint quickly turned into something much bigger, something Prince Harry and Meghan Markle couldn't just ignore or brush off. So how did a routine visit spiral into this level of public outrage? And what does it reveal about how Australians really see them now? The petition didn't just stay a small online moment. It turned into something way louder, almost like a collective message people wanted heard. Most petitions barely go anywhere, maybe a few hundred signatures, and then they fade out quietly. But this one? Completely different story. It pulled in thousands of signatures fast, and the comment section got intense real quick, with people speaking bluntly and not holding back at all. If anyone wanted a clear snapshot of public opinion, that comment section laid it out in full. One person said straight up that the couple had access to more money than most people could ever imagine, so covering their own expenses shouldn't even be a question. Another comment didn't soften the tone either, calling the visit narcissistic and self-aggrandizing, and describing it as nothing more than shameless self-promotion, dressed up to look meaningful. Others didn't soften it at all. They went even more direct. One comment said it plainly, not a single cent of their tax dollars. Full stop.
But apparently Australia holds a special place in the handlers' minds, because somehow they think Australia has been kinder to the formers than anywhere else. I'm pretty sure Australia's not massive fans.
So there is that aspect of it where they want to come here and I guess just sort of launch this new phase of their career. But at the same time, it will of course invite comparisons to that trip back in 2018 when there were thousands of people out to meet them. And now you're looking at situations where they're selling tickets for events. So Meghan will be doing this besties event.
Another took a more formal angle, pointing out that Harry and Meghan made the choice to step away and that the late Queen had already set clear terms. End of story. And no matter how people worded it, the core argument kept circling back to the same point again and again. In their eyes, Harry and Meghan are private citizens now on what looks like a commercial trip and should be treated exactly like that. No special treatment attached. The reasoning behind it hit hard for a lot of people. When they stepped away from royal duties, they also gave up the privileges that come with that role. Things like security planning and government coordination aren't small. They cost real taxpayer money, and that's where people started drawing a firm line. The petition made that message loud and clear. Support, resources, and official backing should be reserved for working royals on official business, not what many are calling a private celebrity-style appearance that comes with a luxury price tag. At this stage, their connection to the crown feels to some people more like history than something active right now. They made the decision to step away, and in a lot of minds, that choice reset what they're actually entitled to moving forward. But even with all that tension, Prince Harry still holds a level of real warmth in Australia. For years, people have seen him as approachable, someone easy to talk to, especially because of his work around mental health, and that connection hasn't completely disappeared. Meghan, though, gets a much more complicated reaction, and it's not simple or one-sided at all. The response around her tends to be more divided, and a lot of that links back to how people interpret their exit from royal life in the first place.
You know, I just think this is another Montecito money grab. As you rightly mentioned, I mean, the Netflix deal has been cancelled. These two just won't give up, and they're just desperate for this relevance. They've got relevance deprivation syndrome.
Some see the business deals, Netflix, Spotify, the book, as a turning point that pushed everything into a more commercial lane. And once that shift happened, it became harder for people to separate what's personal from what feels like branding, and that's where a lot of the tension really started to grow. Interestingly, Harry often ends up coming out of that perception in a stronger position, while Meghan takes on more of the criticism. It's not necessarily fair, but it's how the dynamic has settled for a lot of observers watching from the outside. For many people, the feeling is mixed and a bit conflicted. There's still respect for Prince Harry, but when it comes to Meghan Markle, there's more uncertainty, and that hesitation keeps showing up again and again in reactions like this. And this shift didn't just happen overnight. Back in 2018, the energy was on a completely different level. It wasn't just positive, it was huge. Bondi Beach was packed from end to end, with crowds squeezing in just to be part of the moment. Kids waited outside schools hoping to catch a quick wave from a passing motorcade that lasted only seconds. And even journalists covering the tour sounded more like fans than reporters caught up in the excitement.
Well, you know, thankfully, Meghan Markle grew up in Hollywood, where hiring extras or seat fillers is a go-to to avoid looking like you failed miserably at something. So who knows, there might not be an empty seat in the house. But honestly, who would pay $3,000 for quotes like, "You have to anchor yourself in your own knowing," or "My bacon brings all the boys to the yard"? I would pay $3,000 for a grifter's guide to making millions off of Netflix and Spotify while doing the bare minimum. I would definitely pay $3,000 for a lesson on how to trap a prince. But that's not what these ladies will get. They'll get Meghan transferring one bag of pretzels into another bag of...
Now that same excitement has turned into something way more personal and a lot more critical. Back then, Harry and Meghan had a completely different image. They came across as young, in love, and full of a relaxed energy that most formal royals never really show. Australia connected with that in a big way, giving them a level of warmth that felt real and hard to ignore. That kind of energy? You can't fake it or stage it. It was real, and people felt it everywhere. But there's one detail critics keep bringing up again and again, pulled from Valentine Lowe's book, Courtiers. He claims that during their Sydney Opera House appearance, where massive crowds showed up just to see them, Meghan was overheard asking, "What are they all doing here?" and even described the moment as silly, according to that account. Staff reportedly had to explain that people came out because they felt a genuine connection to the monarchy. Now, whether that moment happened exactly like that, or if it's been shaped by sources with their own angle, is hard to lock down for sure.
So, there is a brand new book which is all in and around Meghan Markle being able to brainwash Harry. Do you buy it? Do you believe it? Or is it just a way to sell some paperbacks?
Well, listen, 𝗍𝗵𝗶 is one of the most feared biographers in the world, and he's gone after Richard Branson, Tony Blair, and of course, Meghan Markle. None of those people have successfully sued him because, like you, Paul, he's an elite-level journalist who checks his facts. And don't forget that these publishing companies are not stupid. They're not going to publish things that aren't true because they know they'll wind up in court.
But one thing is clear. The story stuck, and it spread fast. Critics kept circling back to it, using it as part of a bigger narrative that Meghan didn't fully connect with the institution that helped elevate her public profile. Right or wrong, that moment became a talking point that refused to fade, and it added fuel to an already growing conversation. Then came January 2020, and everything shifted in a big way. That's when public opinion in Australia started to noticeably change direction. The tone became more critical, more divided, and a lot less forgiving than before. A Roy Morgan poll taken after King Charles and Queen Camilla's visit in October 2024 showed that 57% of Australians still supported keeping the monarchy. That's still a majority, but it's lower than the surge of support seen after Queen Elizabeth passed in September 2022, showing that attitudes are slowly shifting and becoming more complicated. Since then, that support has slowly started to dip, and along with it came a more personal shift in how people view Harry and Meghan. This wasn't just about general royal fatigue anymore. For many, it started to feel more targeted, more specific, and a lot more direct. The issue kept coming back to one blunt idea that people weren't afraid to say out loud. You can't step away from the institution and still use it as your main identity. That's how a lot of critics are seeing it now. Harry and Meghan stepped away with big promises: freedom, authenticity, living life on their own terms. But the tours and appearances that followed still carried the same look and feel as official royal visits. The crowds, the attention, the structured events, it all looked familiar. The key difference? None of the formal responsibilities that usually come with that level of visibility. That's where critics started getting louder and more direct. They called it trying to have it both ways, and that argument started gaining real traction. In a place like Australia, where support once felt natural and enthusiastic, that contradiction became harder for people to ignore. For many, the issue isn't just what Harry and Meghan are doing, it's whether their actions actually match what they said they wanted in the first place. That gap between image, messaging, and money started raising more and more questions as time went on. And once people felt like those pieces didn't line up, the conversation shifted into something sharper. The question became a lot more direct. Are they really living the life they claim to choose, or has it turned into something completely different behind the scenes? Then came the question that just wouldn't go away: the money. Ever since January 2020, when they announced they wanted financial independence, Harry and Meghan have continued to talk about public service and humanitarian work. But behind that message, the details of how everything is actually funded haven't always been fully clear, and people have definitely noticed that. At first, the financial side looked simple enough. Big deals with Netflix and Spotify brought in serious money and kept everything running smoothly for a while. It gave the impression that they had it all locked in. But that momentum didn't last forever, and things started to shift. Spotify wrapped up in 2023 after just one season of Meghan's podcast Archetypes. And suddenly the conversation around income, stability, and long-term sustainability came rushing right back into focus. People started asking questions again, and this time they were paying closer attention. The end of the Spotify deal was described in completely different ways depending on who you asked. Some framed it as a mutual decision, clean and strategic. Others saw it as a straight-up commercial disappointment that didn't meet expectations. Meanwhile, Netflix kept things moving forward, and Meghan's lifestyle show with Love Meghan pulled in attention from both supporters and critics, keeping the spotlight firmly on them. Viewers tuned in, but the criticism showed up just as fast. At the same time, paid speaking started becoming a major part of how Harry and Meghan bring in money, and people quickly picked up on it. Harry's appearance at the Melbourne Summit reportedly earned him a mid-five-figure fee. That's not shocking for a public figure, but it's definitely not small either. And it got people talking. Meghan, though, is said to be operating on a completely different level. Some estimates place her appearance fees in the high six figures, even pushing into seven figures for major events. And that's where things really start to raise eyebrows. The clearest example of how this plays out was the Her Best Life retreat in Sydney. A $3,199 ticket offered attendees a full package: a gala dinner, a photo opportunity with Meghan, and a luxury hotel stay. It sounded exclusive, polished, and high-end, but that price tag grabbed attention instantly, and not always in a positive way.
Left the royal family 6 years ago, and we have seen even just the fact their Netflix deal was downgraded, although that's not how they have said it, but it is. These sorts of things, I mean, their value has changed, and that is a very expensive ticket. I will say one thing on a personal note: when I saw that $3,000 doesn't get you an individual photo with Meghan, I thought, well, I'd be pretty upset.
Yes.
if I'm going to pay that kind of money to attend this event, presumably just to hear her speak and be in proximity to her, I want a selfie with the two of them.
Critics didn't hold back, and their argument kept coming up again and again. They pointed out that the entire business model seems tied to the very things Harry and Meghan once said they were stepping away from: royal titles, royal connections, and the global recognition that comes with the Sussex name. That's where the real weight comes from, and people aren't ignoring that. That name carries power because of its direct link to King Charles and the royal family. And without that connection, many believe the commercial value drops fast, maybe even sharply. It's not an easy argument to push back on, and so far, their team hasn't really challenged it head-on in public. In situations like this, silence can end up speaking louder than words. When there's no clear response, people often take that silence as its own kind of answer, and that only adds more fuel to the conversation. At the same time, their supporters are making a point that's just as important. There's nothing illegal or inherently wrong about private citizens earning money through speaking events or public appearances. That part is completely valid, but the debate isn't slowing down anytime soon. That part on its own isn't really the issue at the end of the day. Some people argue this is simply business. Event organizers choosing to pay for appearances. There's no obligation, no confirmed use of public money, and nothing being forced on anyone. From that angle, it looks like standard work, nothing unusual. And to be fair, Harry's mental health advocacy has consistently come across as genuine. He's spoken openly about grief, anxiety, substance use, and some very difficult periods in his life. And for people who've followed his story, that honesty feels real and relatable. But even with that, the questions haven't gone away, not even from supporters. People keep circling back to the same concerns, and they're not letting them drop. The timing, the messaging, and the bigger picture just don't seem to line up in a clean or convincing way for a lot of observers. As the criticism kept getting louder, it started going beyond just a trip to Australia or one viral petition. It began tapping into something deeper, something more complicated that's still unfolding behind the scenes, and something that connects directly back to the ongoing tension inside the royal family itself. For many people watching closely, what's happening in Australia feels more like a symptom than the real issue. The bigger question sitting underneath all of this is one that still hasn't been clearly answered. What exactly are Harry and Meghan now? What do they represent today? What do they actually stand for? And then there's the more uncomfortable question that keeps coming up. Has their departure caused lasting damage to the royal family, or is this something that can still be repaired over time? For some, this doesn't feel temporary at all. It feels like the kind of situation that leaves a mark, the kind that doesn't fully fade no matter how much time passes or how many public appearances try to smooth things over.
Expert Richard Kay has claimed Princess Diana was preparing her youngest son, Prince Harry, to be the king, preferencing him over the shy Prince William, who Diana felt wasn't interested in the top job. Kinsey, look, we have a lot of respect for the late Princess Diana in this country, but man, did she get that one wrong.
Yeah, I'm allergic to this story. Are we really expected to trust her judgment? Diana died in the backseat of a car with a guy who was engaged to another woman. Another one of her ex-lovers wrote a tell-all about her titled Princess in Love, airing all of their dirty laundry. Prince Charles, period. I mean, I don't even have to go into that one. Her poor judgment in men should be studied in classrooms. Harry is right where he should be, taking pictures with paying customers like he's Mickey Mouse.
To understand how things got here, you have to go back to January 2020. That's when Harry and Meghan dropped a statement on Instagram announcing they were stepping back as senior royals, and the reaction was instant and intense. The media quickly labeled it Megxit, and everything escalated fast from there. Within days, Queen Elizabeth called a high-level meeting at Sandringham, something many commentators described as highly unusual and serious. The couple had reportedly proposed a half-in, half-out setup where they could still represent the monarchy part-time while also pursuing independent work. But that idea was shut down firmly, and that decision ended up shaping everything that followed. What they ended up with was a much stricter arrangement than they expected, and everything that followed, the negotiations, the fallout, the final terms, has been picked apart again and again. Interviews, documentaries, books, even court cases, every detail has been analyzed from every angle. Then came the Oprah interview in March 2021, and for a lot of people, that's when everything truly shifted. The tone changed, the stakes got higher, and the conversation became impossible to ignore. One of the most serious claims was that someone within the royal family had raised concerns about the skin color of their unborn child. That moment hit hard and sparked intense reactions, not just in the UK, but across the entire Commonwealth. And it didn't stop there. The fallout from that interview kept building, pushing the story even further into global headlines and making the divide even more visible. In January 2023, Harry released 𝗣𝗵𝗶, and that pushed the situation even further into the spotlight. The book didn't hold back. He described what he said was a physical confrontation with Prince William, shared deeply personal views about King Charles that palace insiders reportedly found upsetting, and gave critics plenty to focus on for months after. It dropped. Then, by early 2025, things took another sharp turn. Harry lost a major legal battle over restoring taxpayer-funded police protection while visiting the UK, and that decision made headlines fast. Afterward, he told the BBC that King Charles wasn't speaking to him because of the dispute, which only added more tension to an already strained situation. He also opened up about uncertainty around his father's health, saying he didn't know how much time he had left, while still expressing that he wanted to reconcile. That mix of concern and distance made the whole situation feel even more complicated and emotional. For a brief moment, it looked like things might finally be improving. There were small signs of progress, the kind that made people think maybe tensions were starting to ease behind the scenes. But that moment didn't last long at all. Just weeks later, Harry reportedly reached out directly to the Home Secretary asking for a new review of his security. Arrangements and whatever goodwill had started building disappeared almost instantly, snapping the situation right back into tension.
Some figure. His book is called Betrayal. It contains some really juicy allegations, including claims that Queen Camilla, King Charles's wife, confided to a friend, Harry's been brainwashed by Meghan. Who could disagree? Since they got married, he suddenly hates his country, hates his family, hates being a royal, and goes off for a very boring life in California.
People close to the palace were reportedly frustrated, and the reaction behind the scenes wasn't subtle at all. One aide summed it up in a sharp line, saying some had mistaken a cup of tea and a slice of cake for an actual peace agreement. That comment alone showed just how fragile the situation really was. At the same time, Harry and Meghan were preparing for their Australia trip in April 2026. Publicly, it was framed as a smaller, charity-focused visit. But behind the scenes, the tension with the royal family hadn't gone anywhere. Since stepping back, the relationship hadn't fully recovered, and there were no clear signs that it was going to anytime soon. Prince William was reportedly not in contact with Harry and seemed to have drawn a firm line, at least for now. King Charles, on the other hand, was said to still care deeply about his son. But at the same time, he didn't want to create more conflict or add pressure to an already delicate situation within the monarchy. All of that made the Australia trip feel like more than just another visit. It was unfolding against a backdrop of unresolved family tension, something that hadn't been fixed, hadn't faded, and was still hanging over everything in a very real way. All of this also connects back to something deeper, the legacy of Princess Diana.
So it is now 7 years on, they're going to be coming back to Australia, but the landscape for them could not be more different. So as I mentioned earlier, I have had sources telling me that it's about coming back here for, there's two main reasons that were mentioned to me. And one is Harry's connection with friends that he's cultivated over the years in Australia. He has a lot of close friends here, particularly in the military community. Then he'll be looking to doing some work in that space while he's here. And also for Meghan, as I said, she's at a very important point in this lifestyle company that she's running and trying to build this empire, because she has now split with Netflix.
Because decades earlier, Diana had her own defining moment in Australia, and it carried serious weight at the time. After her separation from Charles, Sydney became the stage for her reintroduction to the world, her first major solo international tour. Expectations were mixed, and some didn't think it would land well. But what happened next caught people off guard in a big way. Diana stepped into that moment seen by many as the wronged wife, pushed aside, and treated like an outsider. But then, everything flipped. Instead of fading, she came out stronger, more admired, and more connected to the public than ever before. She didn't shrink, she elevated. That trip helped cement her as one of the most genuinely respected humanitarian figures in the world, and people didn't forget it. Now those watching Harry and Meghan closely haven't missed that comparison either, Whether the timing was planned or just a coincidence, once that parallel got mentioned, it stuck, and suddenly it became impossible to ignore. When Diana arrived in Australia in November 1996, she had already lost her HRH title. She was no longer part of the official royal structure, and inside palace circles, some accounts described her as difficult or disruptive. But none of that seemed to matter once she connected with the public. The reaction on the ground told a completely different story, and that's what made the moment so powerful. Once she stepped out in public, the crowds told a completely different story. Huge, emotional, supportive crowds showed up everywhere she went. Hospitals, community visits, public events. It didn't matter. The response was overwhelming, and it followed her at every stop.
Pretty high.
I just can't believe they will be able to find 300 women willing to part with almost $3,000 for this.
Tickets for that are around $3,000. So she'll need to sell out that event because the optics would be terrible if she didn't. But also with Harry, he'll be doing a mental health speech on workplace mental health in Melbourne while he's here. And again, tickets for that are around $2,000. All proceeds go to charity, but they are now commercial and private citizens, as they say. So it's a very different landscape. And there will be comparisons when they're here to that big trip for the monarchy 7 years ago.
She moved through it all with a calm, steady presence that didn't need to argue or explain anything. She didn't try to force her way back into relevance or push loudly against what had happened. Instead, she simply showed up as herself, and that alone shifted everything in a powerful way. And the result? It spoke for itself. The monarchy in that moment looked smaller for letting her go, while Diana looked even bigger for rising above it all. It was a shift people didn't miss, and it's a moment that still gets talked about even today. Now, Harry and Meghan seem to be attempting something that echoes that same path, or at least that's how many people are interpreting it. The comparison to Diana keeps coming up, whether intentional or not, and it's adding another layer to how everything is being viewed. But the outcome hasn't played out the same way, at least not so far. They absolutely have strong supporters, no question about that. There are plenty of people who genuinely believe Meghan faced unfair treatment in parts of the British press, including coverage shaped by racial bias, and that the palace didn't step in when it had the chance. Support for Harry isn't some small or isolated opinion either. It's widespread. His work with the Invictus Games is respected across the board, even by people who are critical of other parts of his public image. That project alone carries real weight and credibility. And the way he's spoken openly about his own mental health struggles has made a real impact. He didn't keep it distant or scripted. He made it personal, and that's exactly why it connects with so many people. In some ways, those conversations have reached further than many formal campaigns ever do, and people haven't overlooked that. But when people start comparing them to Diana, that's where things get complicated fast. Because Diana's approach looked completely different, and people haven't forgotten that. She wasn't hosting luxury retreats or showing up at high-priced events. She was in places like Angola, walking through active minefields, taking real risks that the world could see with their own eyes. She sat with AIDS patients at a time when many public figures wouldn't even stand near them for a photo. The risks she took were visible, real, and came with a personal cost. And that's exactly why people connected with her so deeply. That image of selflessness became the core of her influence. It didn't feel like a strategy or a brand. It felt real, direct, and impossible to question. And that's where the comparison starts to fall apart for a lot of observers watching Harry and Meghan today. Because their situation feels very different. Their current path might make financial sense, and some argue the pressures that pushed them there were serious and unfair. But at the same time, the commercial side of what they do makes it harder for that same perception of selflessness to fully land.
About a year since With Love Meghan launched, and we had 2 seasons of that and a one-off holiday special, and that's no more. So now really all of her eggs are very literally in the as ever basket, especially now she's going it alone without Netflix. So this all kind of feeds into this this image and this career she's trying to build for herself as sort of a Gwyneth Paltrow type, or just getting out there, and it's about lifestyle and self-help and all of those sorts of things. And it does feed into that.
Those two directions, public service and business, can pull against each other, and that tension stands out no matter how it's presented. People notice it, and they talk about it. That's why Australia feels like more than just another stop. It feels like a real test. Not about handling criticism or headlines, but about whether they've built a version of their post-royal life that feels consistent, believable, and genuinely real, something people can support without feeling like there's a price tag attached to it. Australia isn't just another stop on the calendar. It's starting to look like a defining moment for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. With so much attention locked in, the pressure is building, and the real question is getting louder by the day. Are they actually moving forward, or are they starting to lose momentum? So, what comes next for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? And even more importantly, what are they really trying to build right now? That question sits underneath everything as their April 2026 trip starts taking shape. And the truth is, there's still no clear answer. They're now in their early 40s, raising Archie and Lilibet in Montecito, far removed from the royal system Harry grew up in. And that distance isn't random. It's part of the life they chose for themselves. But the world around them has shifted. The major deals that once gave them strong financial stability after stepping away from royal duties have changed. Some scaled back, others ended completely. At the same time, their relationship with the royal family remains deeply strained, and the wave of public sympathy that once followed them doesn't feel as strong or as unified anymore. And people are definitely noticing that shift. It's more cautious now, more conditional, not as automatic as it used to be. The support hasn't disappeared, but it's definitely changed, and people are thinking twice before fully backing everything. Meghan's direction, compared to Harry's, seems much more clearly mapped out. Her lifestyle brand, launched in 2025, gained real traction and placed her right in the middle of the wellness, style, and curated living space, a lane that's already proven to be extremely profitable for other high-profile figures. At the same time, her Netflix series with 𝗼𝗵𝗵 has kept her visible in the American spotlight, giving her a steady presence in pop culture that hasn't faded. All of it connects to a bigger picture. She's building a brand that feels polished, intentional, and carefully shaped, and it's very clearly aligned with the image she's trying to create moving forward. She's also been developing a podcast with Lemon called Confessions of a Female Founder, reportedly aimed straight at entrepreneurial and professional women, which is clearly her core audience right now. The concept, the branding, the focus, it all lines up perfectly with the image she's building. Everything about it feels targeted, structured, and intentional, like each move is part of a bigger plan. Royal expert Richard Fitzwilliams even commented in early 2025 that Meghan appears genuinely happy living in California. He went further, suggesting she may have never fully fit into royal life in the first place, and has now found a way of living that suits her far better. But Harry's situation feels a lot less clear and a lot more complicated. People close to him, or at least those speaking publicly, have described someone carrying real regret. Not necessarily about leaving royal life itself, but about how everything unfolded afterward, and the personal cost that came with such a public fallout with his family. That emotional weight hasn't gone unnoticed either, and it adds another layer to how people are interpreting everything he does now. The Invictus Games still stand out as the strongest and most widely respected part of Harry's work. It continues to generate real goodwill, even from people who disagree with almost everything else connected to Harry and Meghan. That project carries weight, and people recognize it. His mental health advocacy gets similar respect too. It's often seen as sincere, grounded, and personal, not something done just for attention. Those are the areas where his impact still feels clear and hard to question. But outside of that, the bigger picture around Harry feels less defined. Ongoing legal battles and repeated public discussions about family tensions have slowly chipped away at support, even from people who once stood firmly behind him. And that's exactly why this Australia trip matters so much right now. It sits right at the center of all these questions, all these contradictions. On one side, it carries a commercial edge, even if it's being framed around charity and service. On the other, it's a real test of something bigger. Can the Sussex brand still create a genuine connection outside the United States? Because once you step outside the US, everything changes. The influence of British history, class dynamics, and royal expectations hits differently, and the way people respond to Harry and Meghan shifts with it. For some watching closely, this trip isn't just about appearances, it's about proving they still matter on a global stage. Because right now, that question is louder than ever. analysts and commentators are starting to ask tougher questions, and they're not holding back. Can the Sussex media and business model actually last long-term, or is it starting to show cracks? History hasn't been kind to people trying to exist between two worlds without fully committing to one, and that reality is starting to come up more and more. The royal family is known for playing the long game. They wait things out, stay quiet, and let time do the work. But critics? They're not going anywhere either, and their voices are only getting louder. Meanwhile, that Australian petition is still gaining signatures every single day, sending a very clear message that something in the relationship between Harry, Meghan, and the Commonwealth has shifted, and it might not be easy to fix. So, when that plane lands in Sydney and the cameras start flashing, the atmosphere could feel completely different this time. The excitement, the curiosity, the energy that once followed them, it might not be there anymore, and that changes everything in a big way. Which brings it down to one major question. Was this petition a genuine public reaction to concerns about entitlement? Or has it grown into something bigger, a wave of criticism aimed at two people who chose to walk away from a system they felt didn't support them? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this situation has people seriously divided. And if you want more breakdowns like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video.